Sexuality, root word sex, sex, male, female, penis, vagina.
What a rudimentary understanding of the way that human sexuality works. Hey babies, welcome back to my channel. I'm David, you're David, we're all David, and today on Dismantling Hate, we are taking another look at Amir Odom.
Oh, Jesus. Gross.
And the video that we're going to be reacting to is called My Concerns with the LGBTQ Community. It's giving concern. I'm also concerned, but probably for different reasons. The description says, from children transitioning and grown adults performing drag in front of them, to trans men dominating sports and an endless amount of pronouns, we discuss it all. Now, like I said, we've looked at Amir on this channel before, and that was a wild and discriminatory ride, so I'm really interested to see what this video has in store for us. Now, the topics we're going to discuss today in Amir's video are groupthink mentality, homophobia, the LGB versus the TQ+, Pride Month, involving children, drag queens and children, kids transitioning, detransitioners, and trans people in sports. Now, I do believe that we've talked about every single one of these issues on my channel here before, but we're gonna get into it from the perspective of Amir Odom. So I'm gonna slide my bad self on over and we're gonna get started. Let's go. And like, it is walking the line of like freedom of speech. You know what? If we're gonna be out here and we're gonna be vulnerable on this channel here together, you and me, right now, right here, yeah. We should really be talking about that because that's harmful. All right, I'm ready. Are you ready? It's okay if you're not. Take a deep breath. It's gonna be okay because we're gonna do it together. Roll the transphobia.
We've got kids at pride parades performing drag and transitioning. We've got trans adults dominating sports, drag queens and Blue's Clues, and an endless amount of pronouns. Something needs to be said. Here are my concerns. What's up, everybody? Today we'll be talking all about the gay community. Specifically, we'll be talking about my concerns with the LGBTQ community because things are getting a little bit out of hand. Maybe not a little bit, a lot of it. It's getting out of hand.
Oh, very red wig vibes.
And truth be told, the gay community does not speak on my behalf. Why should what I do in private automatically define my worldview, politics, and culture?
I can tell you very quite simply, Amir, is that if you are a queer person, you have come from a line of folks who have been discriminated against things that they don't have control over throughout history. And your inclusion in that culture, queer culture, I do believe it is some set of culture, your inclusion in that doesn't require necessarily, but it does imply that you would have a sense of values that would align with the protection and non-discrimination with that group of people. So if you're a queer person, why wouldn't you care about queer people? Why wouldn't you live your life in such a way that values the identity of everybody in the world? Wouldn't you want to vote in your best interest to keep yourself and your community as safe and thriving and happy as possible? It doesn't have to define what your worldview is, but I think there's something interesting here too about what I do in private. Like, there's a difference here between your sexuality and your gender identity, because yes, your sexuality can be in private, but your gender identity isn't necessarily something that is done in private. Gender expression is something that is very social and cultural and is viewable, is perceivable by people that are around you. So it doesn't have to define your worldview and culture, but your politics. Just personally, I really do see him as a gay grifter. I do, because he's out here making these videos and it's very like edited together like a Marvel movie, and here's what I think and you don't speak for me, and that's fair. I don't need to speak for Amir here, but he's not even speaking for himself at this point. He's arguing against his own best interest as presumably a queer person. He is feeding little nuggets of hate to people who already have problems with the queer community. He can have his opinions and think that it's over-sexualized and that kids shouldn't be around drag queens and that trans people shouldn't be in sports and all of that. If you've watched any of his content or any of my content, you already know what's coming. Like, we could have a bingo card at this point for all of the nonsense we're about to encounter. Shouldn't your worldview be developed beyond that of a hot take? Shouldn't your worldview be developed beyond a point of selling people out from a community that you are seemingly a part of? Let's keep going.
watches sports for fun. That's not gay.
How come if someone's gay, they have to be a part of the gay community? They're automatically thrown in this box of everything, quote unquote, gay. But if you're straight, you're just straight. All of a sudden, if you're gay, you're thrown in this little box of talk like this, act like this, love the drag queens, love the rainbows. It's uncalled for. Why should what I do behind closed doors have to define my entire worldview? Being black is merely just a part of me. Being gay is merely just a part of me. But first, I'm Amir. That's my identity. That's how my personality is defined. It's Amir. And far too often, I'm seeing people, especially the younger generation, come out as gay and feel like they have to be the stereotype. They feel like they have to change their voice. They have to wear the rainbows. They have to like the drag queens. They have to hop on Grifter. And that shouldn't be the case.
You know what? He's not wrong here. Like, there are queer stereotypes and you don't have to fit into those stereotypes. I think society does place queer people into a certain subset of boxes of stereotypes. I think that's absolutely a thing. Same with straight people. Like, it doesn't really do anything to reduce somebody down to their orientation or their identity. So I understand where he's coming from, but really, once you define that idea, where do you go with it? That's the problem that I have with this man, is that he states something that, in my opinion, is valid, but then he almost transposes it onto that nobody should be like this, and that those overly feminine queer people who love the drag queens and rainbows, it's a farce, it's a show, and they're doing it for attention and for nefarious reasons when it comes to children. That's a problem for me. So let's keep going.
Individual with my own thoughts and my own mind. And so are you. No one should be allowing any characteristic of themselves to identify their entire world, their entire being. Because truth be told, and again, I mean this with the utmost respect, this community that's like equality and love and acceptance and diversity is a bunch of copy and paste clones. Because it's
well, do you have to be a part of it then? Then what's the whole point to this video? Can't you find a community of people that are like you? Do you have to try and change? Like, what if it's not being copied and pasted? What if all of these people are legitimately living their most happy, authentic life, and it just happens to be the rainbows, drag queens,
Fears.
right? Doesn't have to be inauthentic. Sure, for some people it would be, but it doesn't have to be. So create your own community. And that is what he's doing here. Just implies a lot of judgment, I think. But let's see.
you have someone that has a different point of view, that operates differently, you shun them down. Why is that?
If it's discriminatory, you can be shut down. If it's transphobic, you can be shut down. And transphobia is coming, almost guaranteed, from this man. But yeah, people can disagree with you. People can disagree with me. Have a look at my comment section, girl. People disagree with me. That's fine. You have a right to. But then when there's discrimination attached to it, then get bent. You're not worth anybody's time if you're behaving in a way that's discriminatory like that. And it's harmful, in my opinion, because it doesn't actually help anybody. Saying that drag queens are dangerous and that trans men shouldn't be in sports, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous, transphobic, J.K. Rowling set of ideals that only aims to tear people down, in my opinion. Have you noticed I've been saying in my opinion a lot more? Protective language, who?
Don't understand it. I don't know why all of a sudden, just because what someone does behind closed doors, they have to subscribe to this entire idea and its entire being, when that shouldn't be the case. And next concern, which is this idea that anyone who disagrees with anything gay, you're automatically homophobic.
I can agree that that's not good. People can disagree with you in a healthy way. But like I said before, as long as it's not discriminatory.
To be allowed to voice our opinion without being scared of being called transphobic, homophobic, whatever it may be.
Why would you be scared of being called that if you aren't?
Strong difference between someone disagreeing with gay people versus being homophobic. You can disagree with gay people all day long. You can not like what they do all day long. But as long as you treat me with respect, as long as you're not scared of me, you're shunning me away, you're not homophobic in my book. As a grown adult, you have the right to your own opinion and your own values. I don't care what you think. I do care if you're trying to stop me from progressing and you're not and trying to make sure that I'm not seen as equal as you. I care about that. Context matters, and typically when someone says they don't like gay people, they're really referring to not liking the gay community and the gay culture, not that individual.
But isn't then that rooted in a stereotype? And his argument is that not all queer and gay people are like that. So then, yeah, that would be a stereotype. Okay, yeah. It's interesting because he's not coming from completely left field. He's not completely out to lunch. Well, he's mostly out to lunch. But I do understand what he's saying, and not everything that he's saying should be thrown out, because there are important points in here. But I don't think you're going to meet those people and raise those important points and have them be validated by the people in queer culture who can actually support you when you're behaving like this and rolling up these good points and transphobic ideas. We haven't heard any transphobic ideas yet, but I have from him in the past, so they're coming.
They don't care what that individual does in private, but they care about all the things that are happening within the gay culture and the gay community. That's what they don't like. There's a lot of gay people who feel the same way. There's a lot of gay people who don't subscribe and do not like the LGBTQ plus community because of how harsh they are and all the things that are currently going on in our nation. If someone asked me in passing, Amir, do you support the gay community? I would say no. In 2023, no. To the extent that I want to be seen as an equal to straight people in this nation and have the same rights, yes, I support those efforts. But when it comes to this entire other agenda, this entire other sphere, an extension of the LGBTQ plus community, I disagree with it.
And that's fair. You can. Absolutely. Nice. Awesome. But it's giving pick me just a little bit.
Fighting for the right for marriage, to now allowing kids to transition. I don't get it.
Yeah, there it is.
I genuinely don't get it. I do get it because not a lot of people are speaking up about it, which is frustrating in its own sphere. But all of this is just driving me up a wall. My next concern with the LGBTQ community is how everything is grouped together. The LGB has nothing to do with the TQ+. They need to be...
We're not going to talk about this at length here because I've done a video specifically reacting to his entire video, the LGB versus the TQ+. I forget what episode that is, but if you click on the playlist, you'll be able to find it. So we're going to rip through this unless there's something particularly heinous.
They need to be their own groups, their own nonprofits, their own missions. All the progress that's been made to make everyone equal and gay acceptance, I feel like it's being washed away because of how radical the TQ plus side of things has become. The root word of sexuality is sex. There's male and there's female, and the main difference between the two is a penis and a vagina.
It's just such a basic way of thinking. I understand what he means, but what do you get about viewing everything as such a binary like that? It keeps people in boxes and it reinforces stereotypes. Stereotypes not that dissimilar to what he was describing as harmful just a few moments ago.
That's it. The only reason someone's gay is because they like the same sex. The only reason someone's bisexual is because they like both sexes. The only reason someone's straight is because they only like the opposite sex. Penis, vagina, that's it. Full stop.
I don't know why that, where that comes from.
What a sentence. Good Lord.
What it means to be gay. That's what it means to be straight. That's what it means to be bisexual. And
to you, it's a very rigid way of thinking.
Now you have the TQ plus, which is all expression, being lumped into what it means to be gay, straight, or at the end of the day, the trans, the non-binaries, the they, thems, all that, you still only like one or two or both things. And there's a real issue that's happening now regarding trans people and gays and lesbians. Because trans people are erasing what it means to be gay and to be a lesbian. Because based off of sex. I'm gay because I'm a male that likes males. Lesbians are females who like females. Again, we're going back. This is I feel like I'm explaining such a simple concept, but for some reason it's gotten so misconstrued. Sexuality, root word sex, male, female, penis, vagina.
Just what a rudimentary understanding of the way that human sexuality works. And that can be true for him. He can be gay because he only likes what he likes, and that's fine and that's fair. But that doesn't mean then that you get to place that standard upon everybody else. Right? And he usually talks about like, oh, if I'm a trans woman, I'm not a lesbian because of my biological sex and what I was assigned at birth. And then if I go out on dates with a straight man, I'm catfishing them and attempting to change their sexuality. And it's all very that argument. A lot of these things would be a non-issue if people were just kind to each other. Oh, God, what a depressing sentence. But it's true. If you were just nice and kind to people, it wouldn't be a problem. And we would just love everyone. I don't know.
We live in this world where we're saying trans women are women and trans men are men. Okay, let's pause here. If we're saying trans men are men and trans men, they're not just men. We're saying trans men because they're transitioning from one gender to another. A trans man is now...
The way that he holds onto language is that as if that has some sort of like sentience beyond the human experience. Language revolves around human experience. So you don't look at language and go, oh, this is how language informs the human experience. No, it's the other way around. And language changes and modifies over time. Words are added to the dictionary every year. Why is it such a problem now that it has to do with pronouns and gender identity and trans men and trans women? It doesn't make sense. And it's just such a basic, boring, elementary argument to be like, here's what trans men mean. Like, here's what trans means. And here's what this means. So that means that I get to disagree with somebody's existence and say that they're erasing this idea of gender. I can understand saying that your biological sex is not something that's completely changeable. And while we can argue against that as well, because in my experience, I'm studying neuroscience right now. If you give a human brain scan to a doctor, a scientist, a professional in any sense, they will assume the gender of that brain scan incorrectly 50% of the time, which means that there is no finite example of what a biological male brain looks like or a biological female brain looks like. Sure, when they dig up your bones in 100 years, they're gonna know that you're a man. I'm like, cool, I will have been dead for a very long time. Please do whatever you want with my body. Make my bones into a guitar and strum the night away. Like, I don't care what future archaeologists think of my bones when they dig me up. Yikes.
Man, what does that make me? Because I don't want the body part that a trans man has. And that doesn't make me transphobic. I'm literally relying on science and the actual definition of what it means to be a gay man. I only like the male genitalia.
Like, cool, that's good for you and that's valid. Awesome. What about it?
So by telling me that I need to accept that someone who is trying to be another gender, they are that gender? They are...
Because gender is a social construct and it's a set of societally standardized norms. It doesn't have to do with your biological sex. They are two different things. And it's super embarrassing that you don't know the difference between the two.
It's like, no. That's literally erasing what it means to be gay. If you're telling people trans women are women, and at this point in age in 2023, to be trans doesn't even mean you need to have the surgery. You can just say you are trans and that's that.
Correct.
What does it mean for a lesbian, a biological woman, to go on a date with a trans woman? That you're telling me a trans woman is a woman. That lesbian does not want male genitalia.
No, so that's completely incorrect there. Like, it may be true. That may be true. But like I said before, if we just led with kindness, this really would be a non-issue, right? Because, okay, so for this example, a cis woman who's a lesbian goes out on a date with a trans woman and she either knows or doesn't know that the woman she's going on is trans or has had bottom surgery. People are a little bit afraid to disclose their transness, and it's a big argument of like, when is that disclosed? Is it on your profile? Do you say it before you meet? Do you say it while you're in the first date? Do you say it before there's a sexual interest or right when you realize that there's a sexual interest? But a lot of people are nervous to disclose that because people can be so hateful and rude in the moment, like this man. You can just be kind to other people and this would be solved, right?
Making me feel crazy. Like,
well,
how the hell am I transphobic now by not wanting to be with a trans man?
You're not. You don't have to be with a trans man, but you do have to behave in such a way that still maintains the respect and dignity of the trans man while you are turning him down. That's it right there. It's really not that complicated.
Well, the only reason I'm gay is because I like men.
That's the transphobia right there, is because you're not thinking of a trans man as a man, and you don't own gender. You don't own the societally constructed ideals of what it means to be a man. It's a set of cultural norms. It's not biological sex. There's a difference. That's what makes you transphobic. The fact that you don't want to engage sexually with a trans man, that's not transphobic. It's not. But your reasoning for it is. But the way that you deliver that information is what makes you transphobic.
I don't get it, y'all. I'm confused.
I can tell.
I don't get it. I don't get this community at all. These people who are trans, I'm literally saying the word, they're trans. They're transitioning from one sex to another. Male, female, there's only two options. No matter how much surgery, how much they assimilate, at the end of the day, their sex will always be their sex. You can't...
Okay, cool. But what is sex versus gender? That's the difference.
Tell me that someone with a whole vagina and uterus is a man just because they're saying they're a man and that's what they want to identify as. That's not how this works. That's not real. This is not real life. I don't understand why this is seen as hateful, but there will never be a situation where a trans man is a man. A trans woman is a woman. They are a trans woman. They are a trans man.
But what do you get from that exclusionary language? Like, what are you actually benefiting from by drawing those staunch differences? I don't necessarily know the answer, and the one that I'm thinking of is a little scary and transphobic. God, this man is exhausting.
They should be recognized as that. My next concern regarding the LGBTQ community is Pride Month.
It's not just about gay, it's about sexual gay. Everyone on the floats, if you've been watching, they've been all sexual and shimming and everything, and naked sailors and whatnot. So I think it's...
Naked sailors and whatnot. They really do cherry pick the most outlandish things, don't they?
about this sexualized culture, and it's almost kind of sexualizing young children. That's my take on it. I think it's a little too much. And why not celebrate gay without celebrating sexuality? There's people with their butt cheeks hanging out. I think it's a little inappropriate to bring your kids here, but they're all about it.
I don't think we need an entire month to celebrate who we have sex with. And if anything, this Pride Month has turned into a huge marketing month. Because if these companies really stood for what they're saying, and they really felt like gay lives matter, and they felt the pride, maybe they would represent it in the countries where it matters most, the countries where gay people are killed. Maybe that'd be a thing. But
that's a very good point. The corporatization of pride is nefarious, yeah.
In America, everything's rainbow. In the Middle East, everything's black and white. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why aren't you making changes and initiatives in the countries that matter most? Why are you just using gay people for clout? All in all...
Yay! We agree on something. Oh, wow. Kylie, write it down.
When it comes to the Pride parades, it's just so unfortunate to see what could be a very cool event. But no, it's a who wears the least parade. Not to mention the amount of kids that are attending, which...
You know what? And I don't completely disagree with this. I just went to a pride parade in my city just a handful of weeks ago. And because I'm aware of this argument, I was consuming the parade with a very critical eye like I haven't before. And I was trying to discern whether this would be something appropriate for children or not, because a lot of people bring up this argument. And I was actually very surprised and delighted to watch the parade. And there was only, I saw maybe like 3 or 4 people that were dressed in a way that I would deem inappropriate for children. There just wasn't enough clothing, right? And it wasn't really appropriate, in my opinion, for them to be just out in public wearing that little, like wearing a Speedo walking down a street. That's not really... No, I don't really see that as appropriate. But I think the nuance that's missing here is that there is a whole set of people, there is a whole culture, there are generations of people who have been oppressed because of their queerness. So then it's like when the pressure is lifted off, everybody kind of goes a little bit overboard, you know what I mean? So I can see it from both sides. I've been to pride parades where if I had kids, I wouldn't bring them. But the parade that I just went to a handful of weeks ago, I definitely would have brought my kids there. Because beyond a few people dressed inappropriately, everything else was pretty fine and fair, right? There is nuance here.
I find it be abhorrent. Like, that's just wild to me when you have people dressed completely wild and there's kids around.
Yeah.
What? Who allowed this? I don't think it's acceptable for a little 6-year-old to go to a pride parade and see all these drag queens and see people in Speedos and nipple tassels.
But it's not the same thing, right? Being a drag queen and being in a Speedo is very different. There's drag that's appropriate for kids and there's drag that is not appropriate for kids. And not being able to see the difference shows a really limited sense of thinking.
What? What are we celebrating anymore? What is this? What is this? I genuinely just do not get it. My next concern is the over-sexualization and involvement of children.
Happy Pride, everybody!
Happy Pride!
Who here knows what gay pride means?
It means where, like, all the gay people, transgender, lesbian, bisexual people gather up and celebrate.
That's absolutely right. It's a celebration of sexual diversity. I mean, everybody should aspire to grow up and be a gay icon.
And that's what Pride Day is all about.
You're right. See you at Pride, everybody!
Why can't we just leave the kids out of this? They are too young to be thinking about anything sex. And I mean this for both straight and gays.
Yeah, there is a developmentally appropriate way for when children should become aware of sexual orientation. I completely agree with that. But there's a difference between sex and love, right? That's the way that I would frame it when I was a classroom teacher. You don't talk about sex, but you can talk about love, because from as soon as somebody can talk and walk, they do have a concept of love because they love, hopefully, their parents, their siblings, their family members, whatever. So it's not who you have sex with, it's who you love. And kids can have an understanding of that. And I've said this many times, but we as adults, as people who understand sex, look at things like sexual orientation and who you love. We look at that with the lens of sex. We look at that with a different set of perspectives because we understand the act of sex. While children do not have this conception of sex, when they look at a concept like who you love, they're not thinking about sex because they don't have an understanding of sex. They're looking at it with an understanding of who they love, which is very different from the act of sex. So just being able to empathize with somebody and what they know and how they're going to be thinking about something is very important when it comes to these nuanced topics.
I mean this across the board. Why are kids at Hooters? Why are kids at pride parades? Why are there child pageant shows? Why are we dolling up 2-year-olds in a full glam makeup and bikini? All of it's weird.
Yeah, I will say, like, toddlers and tiaras and that's weird. Yeah. Specifically, it's not really the dress up part that I find weird, but like putting them on stage in front of people, televising it and monetizing it. That's weird. But like just playing dress up and doing a full beat of makeup on a kid and you're like just at home playing dress up like kids do all the time. What is that? Structured dramatic play. It's a really big part of brain development.
When it comes to sexuality, leave these kids alone. This extends to even kids' shows.
Trans members of this family all love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade. Come join the fun!
All of this LGBT...
These people really hate Nina West in that trans beaver set. I've seen that clip in so many different creators' videos at this point. Hilarious.
Marketing towards children just needs to stop. What are you doing on Blue's Clues? Why is there dolphins with cut marks as if the dolphins transitioned? Why are there pansexual beavers?
I just want to be part of your symphony. Girl, I just want to be part of your symphony. Trans dolphins matter. Trans dolphins deserve all the rights that regular dolphins do. Like, okay. It is outlandish. It can be seen as outlandish. I understand that. But like, what if a child has a trans parent with top surgery scars? So then seeing that represented in the media could be meaningful, and representation matters, and seeing people like you in media matter, and all of that.
It's like, what? I can't even believe I'm even talking about this. How is this real life? How is the thing that exists? How is the thing that we're watching that someone actually sat down and created? How and why? We're children. Leave sex out of it, full stop, period, done. Complete kapwash. Just leave them out. Just leave them out. Leave them out. Leave the kids alone. I don't know why I gotta keep saying it. Leave them out of it. My next concern, why are drag queens so hell-bent on performing in front of children?
They're not. Drag queens don't care about kids. In fact, most drag queens don't like kids at all.
I'm dumbfounded at the link that people try to make between a drag queen and a kid. Why do drag queens feel the need to read to children? Why?
Right? Okay, so there's a big difference here, like I mentioned before. There's drag performances that are appropriate for kids, and there's drag performances that are not appropriate for kids. And it's up to event producers, it's up to parents, it's up to the people that are taking these children to these events to do the research and figure out whether the performances are going to be appropriate or not. Let's think of the movie Sausage Party, you know? God, what a terrible example. But no, my example has meaning here. Just give me a second. So I went to see Sausage Party in theaters. 18 plus movie, very mature topics and themes. And I saw parents sneaking their underage kids into that movie theater to see that movie. Is that appropriate? No. But is there like a gray area of where a parent can make the choice that that's appropriate for their kid? Kind of. Like, there is that gray area there. So it is ultimately the parent's decision to a point, right? I think the fallacy that this man and a lot of people fall into is that they inherently view drag as something that is sexual, and it doesn't have to be. And hey, a lot of drag is sexualized. It is. It really is. But a lot of drag also isn't sexualized. And the drag that isn't sexualized, and especially that is created for kids, like Reading with Royalty and stuff like that, that's just dress up. That's just Bear in the big blue house, Molly in the big comfy couch, or whoever that was. Like, it's not really that complicated. If it's just somebody in makeup and a wig reading to your kids, that's not harmful. In fact, that helps their brain development. Like puppetry and moving colors and shapes, like that's very good. That can be very good for a developing brain. So again, where's the nuance? Completely gone. It's just, this man is just a grifter.
Teaching them how to twerk.
And you're crouched down into this sort of position here, so your bum's sticking out. Hope you're taking this all in. And then you just move your bum up and down like that. And that's twerking.
Why are you having children perform? Genuine question.
But ultimately, the clip that we just saw was a kid dancing. What's wrong with that? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Kids dance. Again, some people view that through a sexual lens because we have an understanding of the act of sex, but kids don't. So they're just enjoying themselves. They're having fun. They're dancing.
I do not get it. I do not condone it. I think it just all needs to be gone. And again, leave the children alone. See, gay relate.
And like repeating this over and over, and I don't know if I'm just like reading into his tone too much, but he's making it sound nefarious in nature. And sure, some people could make mistakes and take it too far, and there could be sexual things, there could be sexual themes that children are around when drag performances are happening, and those mistakes have and most likely will continue to be made. But the implication that has been done on purpose for nefarious reasons in order to gain access to children for sexually explicit reasons, that's harmful. I believe that he's implying that with his tone and the way that he's talking about this, other than it's just somebody not thinking about it and not being completely cognizant of the fact that there are kids in the room. I think it's just people who aren't thinking versus people who are doing it with malintent. There's a huge difference there. And that lack of nuance is where this man lives.
In America, I feel like was pretty much fine. It was dead, not really much happening. Then the kids came in the picture. And that's when everything started changing, going into an uproar, rightfully so. I don't understand why the drag queens feel the need to be around children.
They don't.
This idea that it should be accepted for drag queens to frolic and dance and read in front of toddlers, I don't know why it needs to exist.
As long as it's done in a developmentally appropriate way, that's fine.
It ever became a thing, but it shouldn't exist. Next concern, kids transitioning.
I tell you for me, if you're a boy or a girl?
Okay. Phoenix would like you to know that she's a girl and she prefers she and her pronouns.
I've done too much in this world. It's ruined my life.
These children have no idea what's going on. Kids can't smoke, drink, drive, vote. A kid can't even get a tattoo because it's permanent on their body. But all of a sudden, we're okay with them making permanent decisions, life-changing decisions, because of the way they're feeling. Have we forgot that they're children? Why is it seen as okay to put kids on puberty blockers? Why is it seen as okay to give children mastectomies?
My name is Chloe Cole, and I'm an 18-year-old detransitioner from the Central Valley of California. I started socially transitioning and identifying as transgender when I was 12 years old, and I was fast-tracked onto medicalization at 13, starting with puberty blockers and testosterone, before I went on to get a mastectomy at 15, and I stopped transitioning at 16 when I realized that I had regretted my transition and that it was starting to cause me emotional and also physical harm.
This community is saying, love yourself as who you are. Be yourself. But then we're also telling them, in order to be yourself, you have to modify your body so that you feel comfortable. Okay, but what happened is being comfortable in my skin? What happened is owning who I am as a person? If I'm a flamboyant man, I'm a flamboyant man. Why all of a sudden, if I'm a flamboyant man and there's a flamboyant boy, he has to go get breasts. He has to chop off body parts. Like, what happened is accepting each other and accepting our lives as we are.
There's a few things in here, right? Yes, his point about if you're a flamboyant man, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a trans woman. And sometimes there are people who push transness onto folks because they don't fit to their gender stereotypes. And I can understand that. And that would be harmful. Detransitioners, they do exist. They're out there. Their stories are valid. That does not mean that nobody is trans. That doesn't mean that gender-affirming care shouldn't be available to anyone under the age of 18. And now I'm not advocating for people just being able to walk in and spur of the moment get bottom surgery and vasectomies like he's talking about here. But there are professionals in place. There are doctors and psychologists and hopefully your parents that are involved in these decisions. And yes, while I think it's appropriate for children to start socially transitioning under the age of 18, things like puberty blockers, there needs to be things in place that make sure that it is the best choice for these kids. Is there a chance you might regret it? Absolutely. Is there a chance that you might regret having knee surgery? Is there a chance that you might regret moving to a different city, starting a relationship with somebody, taking a degree in college? Yes, life is full of choices and life is full of potential regrets. That's not unique to being trans. There needs to be systems in place that assist people in deciding whether it is the best choice for them. That does not mean that those choices should not exist. That's it.
What happened to that? Seems a bit hypocritical to me. Got people yelling, be yourself, and then you got other people saying, in order to be yourself, you have to have surgery. What are we doing here? Especially involving children. That brings me right into my next concern, is the LGBTQ community not highlighting and talking about people who are detransitioning and talking about the harms and the risk that come with transitioning.
Well, I learned my lesson, but my breasts are never coming back. And it's like, it's a much more profound loss than I have ever, it's a worse mistake than I've ever made in my life, ever before. I absolutely felt like my life was ruined.
No one's talking about that. No.
You're talking about it. Lots of people are talking about detransitioning. It's absolutely a thing, and their stories are valid, 100%. Making that the monolith of the trans experience is just, it doesn't really help anybody. Yes, you should be aware that your choices might be made incorrectly and that later you'll live to regret your choice of transitioning. But like I said before, everything you do in life is a risk. We should just be reinforcing critical thinking, discernment skills, and decision-making skills.
Talking about how you have to have a chunk of your forearm taken out to create other body parts. No one's talking about a life.
That is a way that phalloplasty works. Like, why does that matter to you if that's not something you're interested in doing? It's just, right, we're like showing all these extreme examples and being very like vulgar and showing the scars and that. And what are we actually getting from this versus just being clickbaity? you know, and selling out queer folks in the name of you building a platform, in my opinion.
Long prescription to pills. No one's talking about all the health effects that happen on later in life as you grow up.
I've had 7 surgeries. I've had 1 stress heart attack. I've had a helicopter life ride with a pulmonary embolism. I've had 17 rounds of antibiotics. I had 6 inches of hair on the inside of my urethra for 17 months. Nobody would help me, including the doctor that did this to me because I lost my insurance. I get infections every 3 to 4 months. I'm probably not going to live very long.
No one's talking about all that.
What do you mean no one's talking about it? Matt Walsh is talking about it. Who's that other awful one? The trans grifter. Oh, I forget her name. Blair White. People are talking about this, but it's the way that you're framing it that makes it not super valid of an argument. Like that person that we just saw talking about them losing their insurance and not being able to find help from healthcare practitioners, that's horrific and that's very sad and that shouldn't be happening. But the answer to stories like that not happening is not less education. It's not creating a world where there's less choices for people to seek gender affirming care. In fact, it's creating more options for gender affirming care, and it's instilling critical thinking, discernment skills, and decision making into the entirety of society and culture in order for people to be comfortable making the choices that they believe are best for them.
Highlighting the people who have detransitioned and bringing up this topic. Blair White has done an amazing job at highlighting this, and you can YouTube it and you'll find a bunch of people who are sharing their story. It's like even they're shunned out of the community. What happened to uplifting their voices? What happened to just sharing information with people?
Is it sharing information with people, or is it sharing information with people with an agenda? Because I think that's a really big difference there. You can share your story as a detransitioner, your experience is valid, and there are people that have detransitioned, like full stop. It's a thing. Absolutely. You may regret transitioning. You might. And that's fair. I also may regret having nachos for dinner tonight. Oh, that sounds pretty reductionist, but like, you know what I mean? Anything can be a regret. And that's the last time I'm going to say that because I've said that a lot.
But by sharing the detransitioner story, you're being transphobic because you're denying someone from being trans. You're trying to persuade them out of being it. It's like, no, I'm giving them the full story. I'm giving them the full scoop. That brings me into my next and final concern.
Thank God.
We've gone through a lot of concerns regarding the gay community. Is trans sports versus women's sports. Now, here's the deal. We talked about this in the beginning, about how there's the LGB and then there's the trans, and how there's sex and biology, and then there's expression. They're getting muddled now, especially in sports, because you have biological men saying that they're women and then competing against women and winning. Obviously, this is a spectrum. Obviously, not every female, not every trans man or trans female is super athletic and they can absolutely dominate and win, because there are female like MMA fighters who can like jump me. Like, I'm not saying that these anomalies don't exist. What I am saying is that the average male can overpower a woman. That's not being sexist. That's not being anti-feminist. That's just basic biology. That's why we have 2 different realms, 2 different sports, 2 different leagues, male and female, because typically the males will dominate the female. I do not think it should be socially acceptable for anyone to just say they're any gender and go out and win scholarships, win sports events. We need to protect the people who are in the sports right now and accommodate the trans. I think a trans league would be awesome. I think a trans league would sell tickets out the woo-ha. A trans football league? What? Like, come on now. Biological men be men, the biological women be women, and the trans people be trans in their own lane. I'm not saying they shouldn't do sports. I'm just saying you need to have your own lane. Just don't like this idea that there are actual men competing against...
Yeah, actual men, that's transphobic for sure. And while I don't disagree, I think trans sports would pop off and that people would buy tickets. I don't know, it brings up that idea of segregation again and othering people and just putting them in their own lane. I don't know if that's particularly helpful or appropriate. I've talked about trans people in sports at length on this channel too, so if you're interested in my thoughts on that specifically with Michaela Ekpanobi and whoever that super transphobic swimmer. I forget what episode that was, but that's in the link there too. So I've had just about enough of this man. So we're going to rip through the last few minutes here and then we'll wrap it up.
Women and winning. And it's not transphobic to point it out. No one's being hateful. No one's being hateful by saying Leah Thomas should not be on a female swimming league. That's not something that's hateful. That's just, I want to protect biological women. I understand the advantage that biological men have over biological women. It's not hateful. It's science. In conclusion, the defining factor of an individual, the defining factor of you, should not be your race, your religion, your sexuality, where you live, your favorite influencer, your favorite entertainer. It should be you.
Yes, but you as a person is built upon all of those things that you just mentioned. So while not one of those is your complete character, so all of those individual pieces matter, but it shouldn't be a single thing.
You are a perfect blend of all the things that you consume, love, and like. I don't understand why we need the need for all these different labels, all these different genders, all these different pronouns. Like, what happened to just being our personality? What happened to being Amir? Our name. We have a name for a reason. That's our label. I'm identified as Amir. Someone says Amir, I look.
Yeah, but you also have pronouns.
Amir Amir is a combination of everything that I love, that I like, that my hobbies. That's Amir. The feminine traits, the masculine traits, all of it. That's who I am. I don't need all these labels and check marks to define who the hell I am. And neither should you. We shouldn't be in this society.
Okay, like you don't need that. And if you don't need that, that's fine. But other people do want that.
It's in this day and age where people feel the need to have all these different pronouns and different titles for their sexuality.
It's just like I open up my clutch and I'm like, which pronoun today? I'm like, no, that's not how that works. And yeah, there are outliers of people who use pronouns that aren't popularly used, but that's not the majority. And that also doesn't mean that we shouldn't show respect and accommodate and give understanding to those folks that are using pronouns that aren't typically used. Again, this would all be solved if everybody was just kind to each other. God, that's a depressing sentence because it means that we're not kind to each other.
They're a little bit more feminine than masculine, and it's just it's like a look at me contest. This community has gotten completely derailed. I'm not being irrational here. Just genuine concern.
Yeah, you are being irrational because it's not necessarily something that has been derailed, but perhaps this man, because he's not very old, I think he's probably younger than me at least, he wasn't part of that queer community and queer culture, and neither was I, honestly, but I've done research and I have somewhat of a nuanced understanding about queer culture and where we have come from, and it's not necessarily that far of a deviation of where we are now. Like where we've come from and where we are right now, it's not some big deviation. It's actually a slow and continuous climb and letting everybody live a life where they're free from discrimination. It's not some big left turn. It's actually the continuation of generations of hard work from people who have been fighting for our rights before we were alive, me and him included.
Understand a lot of what's going on. I really just dislike this idea that because I'm gay, because I am engaged to a man, that automatically I subscribe to everything that they're doing. No. So while this video is being made, because there's a lot of people out there who agree with me who just can't speak up, they can't say these things because they're going to get canceled and they have to pay the bills, they have to provide to their family. And I just wish we're at a point in society where we can just actually sit down and have a conversation. I'm glad that there are a lot more gay people out there waking up to the fact that they can just be themselves. They don't.
You can be yourself without pushing other people down.
Subscribe to the LGBTQ community. They don't have to be a part of this big old group or like the drag queens or everything that involves. And as always, I hope that you're taking the time to reflect on your life, reflect on your goals and dreams.
Yeah, we've been reflecting a lot here. Okay, what a dumpster fire. Okay, babies, that brings us to the end of this video here. Thank you so much for getting to the end of my commentary. If you're still here, that must mean it means a lot to you, and I appreciate that because it means a lot to me too. So thanks for getting to the end. If you like the video, let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really love to know. If you need some more entertainment, go down and look in the comment section. People usually leave some pretty interesting comments down there. The playlist of Dismantling Hate's gonna roll here on the end screen if you're interested in watching more of these commentary type videos from me. I have a podcast called Talk with David Day. You can listen on Spotify or watch on YouTube. I have a vlog series called Does Size Matter that's currently airing right now as well. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok if you're interested in doing that. Find me over there, DM me, tell me all the things. In conclusion, there is a little bit that I can agree with Amir on, but ultimately it's not a whole lot, which is fine. We don't have to agree on everything. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about that, because I've had it talking about this man and I don't think I'm ever going to react to him again. But yeah, thanks for being here. Thank you for getting to the end. I really appreciate you. Subscribe to the channel if you want. Do that. It's a free way to support me and I appreciate you so much for doing that. Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm David, you're David, we're all David. And until the next one, goodbye. And like, it is walking the line of like freedom of speech. You know what? If we're gonna be out here and we're gonna be vulnerable on this channel here together, you and me, right now, right here, yeah. We should really be talking about that because that's harmful. All right, I'm ready. Are you ready? It's okay if you're not. We'll take a deep breath. It's gonna be okay because we're gonna do it together. Roll the transphobia.